I did a Hyrox Pro individual last year and I'm going to do another one this year. I think I'm going to do a pairs one, or failing that, an individual one again. And I thought it might be helpful to run through some of the training I'm doing and some things you might need to do in order to do your first Hyrox, and a few of my takeaways from competing the first time. So I'm a CrossFitter, and during my last one the only training I really did for it was CrossFit and weightlifting, which is not ideal at all. You definitely need to do some Hyrox specific training, and that's what I'm going to be doing this year. I honestly learned that for someone that comes from like a weightlifting background with a lot of strength, it is mostly a running workout, and it isn't very close to CrossFit. A lot of people think it is, but it's really not. In CrossFit there's a lot more like skill and gymnastics work and kind of other things that you need to focus on, but in Hyrox it's more running is the large part of it, and then like strength and some other cardio. So for me, I'm going to really have to build that like aerobic base for all of the cardio elements in there. I do stuff like wall balls and farmer carries and the lunges with the sandbag and burpees all of the time, but I definitely need to train some of the elements a little bit more than others. The sled is really heavy, and if that's something that you struggle with, then you'll need to train for that by doing stuff like squats and also sled pushes at the weight. Something a little bit different from CrossFit is they didn't include the sled weight when they put the weight up, so I thought the weight was going to be a lot lighter than it was. Thankfully I'm super strong and I survived with the sled, and it was one of my strengths, but I can imagine that could trip up a lot of people if they're expecting the weight to be the actual weight like it is in CrossFit and they forget to kind of add on the sled weight. The worst part for me was definitely the burpee broad jumps. I do a lot of burpees in CrossFit, but at the time I've been doing more weightlifting and I am not used to having to jump after a burpee, and when you're so gassed from the run it's really difficult, and it's much longer than at any kind of CrossFit event. It takes like an hour and a half to 2 hours for most people to do it, so by the time you get to the burpee broad jumps you are blowing. To train for Hyrox, if it's your first one, I would identify your strengths and weaknesses. So if you're coming from a CrossFit background, then your strengths might literally be your strength and you might not have to work on that much. If you're starting from scratch, then you'll need to work on your strength, your technique for some of the movements, maybe like wall balls, and obviously your running. I think one of the biggest mistakes a lot of people will make is they'll see that it's like 8k of running and they'll think they need to go out and do really long runs, but when you actually look at it from a training perspective, you're only running 1k at a time. So actually you need to train your ability to run 1k relatively quickly and then go back in and work on a movement. Like, you don't need to be running like half marathons and further. You need to be working on that 1k and then also adding in other movements so that when you get there on the day and you run and then come back into the rock zone, you're not dying because you've just done like 1,000 meters on the ski erg. If you're trying to get a really decent time, then the transition time matters a lot. That's not something that I paid much attention to because my aim was just to complete it last year. But this year, if I'm trying to be a little bit more competitive, I will make sure I don't spend so much time dawdling in between the movements. So my training for it at the moment looks like this. I'm doing some laps around the block, which is around 800 to 1,000 meter runs, and then I'm going into the gym and I'm actually doing some like strict gymnastics work because I don't really need to work on my strength outside of what I already do in CrossFit. I need to work on my running, but I need a movement that's going to fatigue me so that when I go back onto the run I feel exhausted. Then closer to the time I'm going to do more stuff that involves like a 1k run and a 1,000 meter ski erg, or a 1k run and then like 40 burpees, or some farmer's carries, or literally running through the movements that we're using so I can test how fatigued I'm going to be going into a movement from the run and then going from the movement back to the run again. For instance, when we had to lunge with the sandbag, that one was really difficult, and if you're a CrossFitter and you've ever done Murph, it felt like Murph legs, and when your legs feel like absolute jelly and you're finding it really hard to run, and that was just because I'd done a load of lunging. Whereas something like the farmer's carries, that fatigued my arms more, so that was less bad going back into the run workout. Again, the sled push really fatigued my legs going into the run, but the sled pull didn't so much because that's more like upper body. And if you've not done a lot of sled pulls, that is something that you definitely need to train. There is a massive technique part to that, and I would recommend using your whole body weight, and you get like a little box that you can go between, and personally I would move forward to the front of the box and then run backwards with it, or like push yourself backwards with it, and then you use more of your legs rather than all of your upper body, especially if you're like stronger in your lower body like me. On the machine based cardio, so the row and the ski, you need to learn how to pace yourself. You don't want to go like super hot out of the gate and completely destroy yourself in like a minute and not get anywhere near to your distance, or completely destroy yourself, finish the distance and then not be able to run. You want to be able to hold a consistent pace. So for that kind of training, I'd recommend getting on a rower regularly and trying to see what kind of pace you can comfortably hold on a rower for the distance that you need to row, and then see if you can go into a run straight after. If you can't, you know you've gone too hard, and you'll know what kind of pace to look for on that rower or the ski-erg. And then as you're training over time, you can work to try and decrease that rower pace so that you can still get onto the run and feel quite fresh, but you're not completely burning yourself out. Going onto the wall balls, I thought I was going to smash out 100 reps, I'm not going to lie. I'm really good at wall balls. I'm tall and I've got a lot of lower body strength, and I do CrossFit, so that's something that's really common in CrossFit. I don't struggle with the depth, I don't struggle with the technique, but I massively overestimated myself, and I think I ended up breaking it into like 10s and 15s maybe. And again, I didn't specifically train for that. I've done the workout Karen before, which is 150 wall balls in one go, and I managed about 75 without breaking, and I thought I could just do that. Clearly I was very wrong, especially after all of the other things, because the wall ball is the last event. So for that one, again, I would practice like coming off a run, being out of breath, and then seeing how big a sets you can hold. For me, I'd probably train to try and do like 5 sets of 20, and then best case, if I was feeling like really good and I was close to the 100 rep, then I just go full send and go like 40 or 50 in one go. But it's definitely not a good mindset to go into 100 wall balls and think you can do them without breaking, so don't do that. And for me, I like to compete because I like to compete, I like to enjoy it. I just wanted to complete the pro individual one because that looked like quite a challenge, and I just wanted the badge to say that I'd done it. With competitions, you never know who's going to turn up on the day, and Hyrox is getting more and more popular, so you can't plan on being on that podium. All you can do is try and do your absolute best and be proud of your effort at the end of the day. And whether your goals are to complete it, just to have done the thing and be proud of yourself for that, or to beat your previous time, celebrate your little wins on the way and enjoy the process. That's what I plan on doing this year anyway. I am going to share little bits of my training towards my Hyrox that I will be doing. I think it's the London one in April or May, so subscribe to the channel if you want to see some of those. And if you're interested in seeing me complete the pro individual one with no proper training other than weightlifting at the time, which is honestly ridiculous that I did that, then watch this video right here. Thank you for watching, guys. I will see you in the next one. Bye.